Honestly, there's very, very little out there for men. There's a lot of local men's groups that are typically tied to nonprofits in the local community, which I think are great. And for many men, those work. They're a great outlet and support system. That never really connected for me. And also, when we were going through our first losses and Beckham's loss, we were living in Connecticut and had very little resources available to us. Only when we moved to Pittsburgh and found Emma's Footprints, the nonprofit that supports both our podcast as well as supported Jessica and I through our loss of Ariana, did we really find a whole lot of resources in totality. And specifically, they have a men's group, but they're based out of Erie, Pennsylvania. And as I mentioned, I live in Pittsburgh, so that really wasn't applicable for me. There's a shout out to Sad Dads Club, which is an amazing Instagram and blog, and we've actually had them on our podcast recently. We're partnering very well together, and they're really creating a community for men that are going through this exact same type of loss. And there was one other podcast, Dad's Still Standing, that exists in the UK that was just started the year prior, so a shout out to them as well. But the reason I started Guys in Grief and the reason I called Brandon and Brian was I started looking and Googling and doing all the research that I possibly could to see what was out there to just help me to go through my own grief. I had no intention of stepping into this space and being an advocate or to be the person that was going to create the resources that we have. But I did so because there was a gap, and I don't have an expertise in this. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, none of us are. But what I did have was a willingness to be vulnerable and recognition of a platform that through a podcast that we could really create something out there for men and really try to fill that void.